Tansei. I'm Tina House. We're here on the former property that was once known as the St. Mary's Indian Residential School just outside of Mission, BC. Joining me today on my panel is Mike Kelly, a former student, as well as Lorraine Nazell, who now works for the First Nations Health Authority. Mike, I want to begin with you. Earlier today, they revealed some very troubling results of their ground-penetrating radar and all of their archaeology research that they've done here. How are you feeling right now, Mike? Because I know myself, I'm feeling very disturbed and very troubled by the news that there are unmarked anomalies here on this property right now.
Oh, when they first brought it out this morning, I was really re-traumatized from death that I know of in the old school there. And thanks to Lorraine here, she helped me walk me through that traumatic time.
Do you feel lucky that you made it out alive, knowing that so many others didn't?
Looking back at my life, I don't believe luck has anything to do with it. It's because I changed my life when I was in my 20s and started working for a creator, and I find myself burying all my family and friends that I grew up with, went to school with. All my teachers are gone from this faith, and I believe that I'm here because Creator God wants me here yet.
Mike, you're also now a healer as well. Tell us about some of the work that you do to help others that are dealing with trauma.
I use the way I learned is hands-on healing. I pray with ones that have trauma, grief and loss, burdens and everything, and any messages, I'll relay them, or at least when no messages, I could feel the pain coming off of them and them letting go of the pains that they're carrying.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience when you went to school here? How old were you and what was that first day like? Do you remember that day?
I was 9 years old when I went to school at the old school over there in 1956. And first off, the first year was really puzzling because it's all new and had to learn everything, learn the rules, go by the rules, get the strap, whatever. We got strapped for stepping out of line, talking when we're not supposed to be talking in church. The nuns had a yardstick, that kind of stuff. And it's all learning what to do and how to do things according to the rules.
So very militarized, in your opinion, is how you would summarize your experience at residential school.
After a while, when I was going through court, I told the people that those people in concentration camps over on the inside of the world had it better than we do, because we weren't allowed to speak unless spoken to or ask a question. We become docile. When I was in court there, and I told the courts, I said, we became docile because we couldn't do anything, say anything, move, or step out of line there or get the strap. So we learned how to listen and shut up.
That just breaks my heart, Mike, because you were just a child. Going back to some of the information that was shared with us today, it was very troubling to hear about when this old school burnt down, that the firemen came and actually found fetuses in the walls of that school. That just shook me to my core. I mean, this is horrific information that was shared publicly. Knowing that 158 children died at just these 4 locations, that only just 2% of the St. Mary's former school here was searched so far, and already they've uncovered anomalies. Lorraine, you work extensively in this field now. You work with a number of organizations. Tell me about some of the work that you do.
I am very much involved with 10 Indian residential school projects across BC. One of the largest is the Indian Residential School Survivors Society, and then the second largest is Southern Laleham Healing Society. And we are health and cultural supports to 210 plus First Nations across BC, as well as we have missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls programs throughout the 5 FNHA regions, as well as Indian Day School. Lately, we've rolled out funding to help with the trauma, the ongoing trauma that folks have been dealing with in community. And last but not least is we support the 18 IRS sites and the 3 Indian hospital site communities with the work that they're doing, which brings us here today.
Obviously, you see a parallel between residential school and now murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls across this country. Lorraine, what are some of the challenges for you to continue to do the work to support the projects and the many amazing people in the front lines trying to help people in their trauma?
I would have to say that the challenge is since the Aboriginal Healing Foundation was no longer in existence, they did a transfer of funding over to, in our case in BC, First Nations Health Authority. That funding base has not changed ever. And there is no way that 10 organizations can meet the needs of 210 plus communities. And just really, we're statistically noticing a real spike, especially since the 215 and Kamloops, a real spike in needs for communities. They're dealing with grief, they're dealing with loss, they're dealing with the opioid crisis, and this 215 issue and the missing children is just tugging away at all our hearts. And finding the resources to adequately address that is very hard to do on a funding parameter that only goes year to year. We need long-term sustainable funding.
Absolutely, and I think certainly hearing information that there's even more suspected unmarked graves being uncovered here just outside of Mission, BC, it's triggering for many. Mike, can you tell me about when you were a young man? I know you shared with me earlier that you actually ran away 26 times while you were a student here. Share with us an experience that you remember of you running away.
Well, when I was 10 years old, me and my stepbrother, my brother wanted to go home. I said, "Why, you want to go home now?" And he said, "Yeah." And then our next door neighbor, he was 6 years old and first year of school here in 1957. So I said, "Okay, we're going to go after dark." And we took off. And it took us 3 days to get from here to Hope. And I tell that story every once in a while that we were running away from a car one time and there was just a little drain ditch. We were crawling inside the pipe there. We don't know if that guy saw us or not, but nothing happened. We made it home anyway.
Wow.
We ate apples and pears and whatever we could on the fields, on our journey, and that's what kept us moving.
Incredible. What a story. Mm-hmm. Mike, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think that it really shows the resiliency and the survivor and the power of many of our people that endured this horrific experience. Lorraine, this is obviously very difficult for so many people to hear the information that was shared here in Stolo territory. What can people do to find their help and their healing in this very difficult time?
I know that there are a lot of numbers that people can call. There's crisis lines with the Indian Residential School Survivors. There's crisis lines with Southern Laleham. They can contact the First Nations Health Authority for a list of resources. And really, at the end of the day, I heard Mike say earlier that we lean on the Creator, the grandfathers, the grandmothers, the ancestors. We lean into the land to help us make it through these times when they're this troubling and really touch our hearts. So I really believe in the power of the creation that's all around us and the life that's all around us.
Indeed. Mike, any final words on that time that you went to school here that you could leave us with?
Education was good, but the rest of it wasn't. I liked playing soccer and basketball and baseball here, and when I left, I ran far away as I could, and I went to California, and then I wound up going to school down there and I got my GED and a bunch of other engine overhaul degrees and stuff like that when I went back to school in California.
How are you feeling, Mike, hearing that these were unmarked graves, potentially graves of your schoolmates here on these grounds where you literally played soccer?
I didn't hear about it till after I grew up and after I was already in my healing journey. So it was something, through our lives, we always knew that they were there, and there was always children that went to school and didn't come home, And that was a big eye-opener when I walked into that 215 in Kamloops there. So I stayed there and I supported them for a couple of days before I came home.
Yeah. Wow. Mike, thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us as well. This is very, very impactful information that you've shared with us, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today, and back to you in studio.